In this next movie, I'm going to show you a few really cool techniques that I like to use when building a montage. I may or may not use them for this montage, but these are some good tricks to keep in your back pocket. Let's go ahead and step into 04-04 techniques and take a look at some other things you can do when building a montage. Now, this montage is actually timed out based upon what happens in the shot, the action in the shot. And in this case, I cut at the end or the beginning of an action. But what if I want them all to be the same duration? This is a really cool technique. I simply can select all the clips that I have in my timeline. I press Control-D, and the dashboard changes to where I can enter the duration I want of each clip. I want this to stay about the same length, so I'm going to type in about 20 frames. Watch what happens when I hit Enter. The duration of each clip is now exactly 20 frames long. And this is great if you're cutting to a piece of music or if you have a lot of still images and you want everything to be the same duration. And I can simply go in and see how it works. And if the timing isn't great within the shot, remember, you can always just select that one clip with the Trim Edit tool, and you can do a slip edit underneath just to find the exact timing when the pen's in focus. Let me go ahead and hit Command-Z a couple of times because I want to step back to where it was when we stepped into this movie. Now, just so you can see and feel the difference, I'm going to play the first few shots again. And now I'm going to add some music underneath. And in my sound effects library, and let me switch back to all clips, I have one called Radio. And this is just kind of a beat, beat, beat. But I want you to hear and see how it feels differently when I add this to the montage. I'm going to go ahead and just press Q, and it's going to attach it to the clip. Now, even though I didn't have my playhead exactly in the right place, I can simply press the selection tool and drag it to the very beginning of my montage. It has a completely different feel, a completely different vibe as soon as I put some sort of sound effect or music underneath. So things like a heartbeat or a clock, or in this case, just the sound of a cymbal, changes the whole feel of the montage. I'm going to go ahead and remove this because I want to show you one more thing that can affect how a montage feels. So again, I'll simply undo that a couple of times, and we're going to talk about transitions. Right now we're doing jump cuts. But this would feel a lot different if we had dissolves between them. And I'll tell you that the default duration of a dissolve, because it's 1 second long, and if I have clips that are only between 20 and 30 frames anyway, I'm going to be just dissolving all the way through. I'm going to go up here under my preferences, jump over to editing, and change my transition duration from a half a second, which we set up at the very beginning of this course, to something even shorter. Let's make that 0.3. We'll close that out, and now I'll select the first edit point, hit Command-T, and it puts on my default transition, which is my 1/3 of a second dissolve. Now, I could actually put this transition on all of the clips at the same time by simply selecting them and now once again hitting Command-T, and now I can see how it would feel if we had dissolves between each of them instead of cuts. I might actually make the dissolves even shorter, but I want you to notice it actually feels like time is taking longer. So if I wanted to create a montage that made the audience feel that it took a lot longer to get from the previous scene to the following scene, I may build a montage with dissolves. Now, what if we didn't use a dissolve but use, say, a special effect as our transition? We'll step into the transition viewer, and underneath lights, I have a couple of cool options. I think the lens flare, since we use that sometimes to transition in and out of the memory, could be kind of cool. Now, I'm really a big fan of lens flares, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in, and I have a gut feeling that 1/3 of a second may be too jarring, because I really want to see a bunch of flashes, but let's go ahead and test it first, and we can always shorten them later. So I'm going to go ahead, select my timeline, and hit Shift-Z so you can see everything, and make sure everything is selected. And then I want to put on my lens flare. Now, this is kind of a cool trick. If I right-click on the lens flare, I can make that my default transition. So now it's very easy to simply select the clips I want that transition on and hit Command-T. And instead of having dissolves, I should have lens flares as my transitions. I really do like this effect, but I probably would make the transition a little bit shorter because it's drawing just too much attention to itself. But that's not a bad idea to try different transitions sometimes in a montage. Just don't go overboard and make them subtle. So as you see, there is a lot of things you can do in a montage with transitions, with music, and with the timing of cuts that affects the way your audience feels about a scene.